Hi everyone and welcome to the Red and Blue Review with me, your host for one night only, Ian Lyons. And tonight we'll be discussing an early Christmas miracle. Roy using some of our youth, a point away at Man City, as well as the usual ramblings that are club related. So with me tonight, we have a very, very experienced panel. We have the wonderful Timothy. Hello, Timothy. How you doing? Yeah, that's good.
Off mute. Remember to take off mute before starting talking. So you've got to be impressed with that. Good evening, everyone.
Start the curse of Lionsy already. And we have in the next corner, we've got Paul. Paul, how the hell are you?
I'm good, thank you, Ian. Hello, everyone. Yeah, still buzzing from yesterday and still got Cloud9 glow from our stunning comeback. So, yeah, lots to talk about tonight and enjoy it.
Excellent. I'm sure we'll knock that out of you within a couple of minutes. Right. And, of course, the star of the show. It's Greg, our resident Match of the Day expert. Greg, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Ian. Yes, thank you. Thank you. Happy to be here. Good evening, all.
Yes, excellent. So you can see everyone, you're going to be well served tonight. Follow us on the usual socials. You know where we are, you know where they are. Get liking, get sharing, do everything you need to, subscribe, but don't just sit there. Make sure you get those comments flying in because it helps with the algorithms. And we all know algorithms are king. Right, okay. So, Nigel, what have we got up first? First slide. I guess we better have a look at the side, haven't we? Yesterday. Gents, an unusual side and a few surprises for the starting lineup. Who wants to take this first? What were your initial thoughts when you saw the lineup? Paul, you were there. Let's go with you first, shall we? What was the mood in the stand?
I think there's a bit of a surprise, to be honest, when we saw this. None of us could remember the last time Roy had ever deviated from his back four that he loves and trusts. But we see the amount of defenders in there, the amount of fullbacks, and you sort of assume, it's got to be five at the back, which it turned out to be. But I was certainly surprised to see Henderson and Eze on the bench, because in his press conference on Friday, he'd said that both of them had trained hard, both of them wanted to play, they were itching to play, but the medical department was sort of saying no, they shouldn't. So if they were told that on Friday, I don't think they'd have changed their mind. So whether Roy's overridden them and said needs must, blah blah blah, but I find that quite surprising because the week before he dropped Lise back to the bench on the basis of the medical department's advice. So wondering where the power struggle is there or anything, but obviously he came in ultimately great. It was a good job he did come in. I think it shows the lack of faith in Remy Matthews, to be honest, to start a game, which is not the end of the world. Your third choice keeper you hopefully never have to rely on. So I think with all the injuries, maybe if we'd have been full strength, he might have gone with him. But yeah, it was a surprise to see those two. Nice to see Eze on the bench. If we thought we'd get him a few minutes on the pitch before Thursday, hopefully that would get him in the team for Thursday. So yeah, it looked like it was going to be defensive, and ultimately I was also pleased to see a bit of tactical flexibility, because we all know Roy, he plays the same formation, same players, usually the same game plan, whether you're playing City, Liverpool or Luton. So to see him actually change something up was quite nice. And yeah, if you're going to play a bit more defensive, let's be honest, the Etihad is the place to do it. So yeah, it was a bit of a surprise, but yeah.
Well, I mean, it's certainly a place we know well how to defend pretty well. Tim, come on to you next. What were your initial thoughts? And not just about the personnel. I mean, Paul's touching it straight away. Henderson was a bit of a surprise. But what about maybe the kids on the bench and actually the formation that Roy seemed to start with? Mute.
Yeah, I'm no good with IT, you know that. I don't think he had a lot of choice, to be fair, with the injuries and the paper-thin squad that we've got. No real surprise at all. I was pleased to see Richards get more time. Again, I don't think he let us down at all. Riederwald, I thought, started off a bit shaky, but I thought he had a great game. And it was pleasing to see that these players that don't get a lot of time can come in and make the difference they did.
Excellent. And Greg, what was it like watching from the sofa? What did Danny Murphy et al. Have to say about it?
I think Danny Murphy was more talking about Roy FC, I think, than Crystal Palace FC. But nevertheless, at least it was positive around our team. Yeah, on the sofa, it was good seat. First off, I would say probably best seat in the house. To be fair, that I thought I quite like these situations. I know this is a little bit perverse, but we got lots of injuries and all sorts going on. And you are having to pick from your squad an unlikely side. It's a riff-raff mishmash. And to be honest, when I saw the lineup, I was quite excited because I was thinking this is either 5-0 City all day long, or it's going to be one of those days. And fortunately, it was one of those days. So for me, I know it's odd, but I like it. You get to see players that don't normally play, and you hope that they slot in and do a job.
It's interesting because I was going to, the next question I was going to ask, Greg, and you've already answered it for me. Thank you. You're such a pro. Is about the pre-match expectations, and what the expectations of you guys were. Perhaps Tim, before we go to Paul, who actually was there and had the mood of the crowd and the buzz that was going around before. What were your expectations of what the result was going to be before the game even kicked off?
Well, Paul Bristow did some of his updating, and he had a picture of a nice breakfast on Facebook before the game. And I asked him if he had a pint of vodka just to take his mind off it. So I think that was kind of where logically most of us were expecting yesterday to go with the injury problems that we've got going to Manchester City. I 3-4-0 would not have surprised me beforehand.
With that in mind, Tim, were you pleasantly surprised at the formation, the seeming flexible 5 at the back, just to try and soak things up? Did you think that was the way to go?
To a certain extent, I think it was a bit of a Roy masterclass. I think it would have been suicidal to have a go at City right from the get-go. I thought Roy's interview when he was after the game talking about that, and as Paul mentioned, it was so pleasing to hear him say that, with 75 more minutes, we got the goal back. So we thought, let's have a go, which is when he brought the other players on. I'd also like to, I know he's my boy crush, but I'd like to mention Wardy, because he's had a lot of stick this year for some performances that haven't been up to scratch or showing he's towards the end of his career. But again, against Liverpool, he was great. Yesterday, he was solid. He did what you want a defender to do. So I was very pleased with the overall performance, to be fair.
So, Paul, forget us armchair fans. You were actually there.
Yeah.
What was the buzz when obviously the surprise was Henderson. Eze was another surprise just to see him on the bench. Yeah. As you say, power base. He's taken charge of that situation, obviously. But Roy actually managed it, I thought, quite well by keeping him on the bench and probably keeping his powder dry in that regard. So when you saw the alleged formation, flexible 5 with Richards, dipping in as they tried to stretch it, the fullbacks went out wide. Was everyone happy with that at the start, do you think?
I think everyone was just happy we had 11, to be honest. I don't think there was any expectation, to be honest. Anyone we spoke to, I don't think anyone thought we'd get anything. And so we saw the team, and we'd all heard from the press conference who was out, so you knew that. And then it turns out Hughes also then got unwell the night before, so he dropped out as well. So that threw things a bit. But I thought what was quite funny is the Sun before the game saying that Crystal Palace had named potentially the worst ever Premier League starting lineup. So that was probably the mood in it. They were expecting a thrashing, and I think most of us going up there, we were there not in any expectation. And so we saw the back 5, and as you say, and that's in theory that should be a back 3, and then wing backs going up and down to give you some extra attack. With the fullbacks that City have and they're pressing forward, I was pretty sure myself personally that it was going to be a back 5. They were going to be penned back, and as I say, against City, I can accept that. but you knew you don't have the ball. Every time we got the ball, you put it out, it comes back again, and we'll go into that in the game. So yeah, it was no expectation. Henderson and Eze were a surprise, and saying everyone wants to see the youngsters. They were on the bench, and as you say, you always think there's always a token gesture putting them on the bench, and they'll never be used. So it was quite refreshing that when Ward went off. And that we're not sure how that is at the moment. We were on the train on the way back. We were sat next to the father of one of the kit men of the club, and he basically rang his son for us to find out what happened to Joe Ward. And he's done a hamstring apparently, so he could be out for a few weeks.
Another one,
which is typical. But yeah, so when he went off, everyone was expecting Tompkins. He'll come in and on the back or whatever, or bring on harder to throw Ozo on. It was a pleasant surprise, and as we'll go on to say, he proved a great decision. He played really well. So yeah, there was no surprise team lineup, but yeah, from my point of view, I was expecting pretty much backs to the wall with that lineup.
Right, so let's crack on then. Let's you were there. We'll cover the main points of the game. Most people have seen it anyway, but we'll talk our way through the game if you wouldn't mind taking us through that.
Yeah. So as expected,
main points.
Yeah, as expected, we were backs to the wall. They had all the ball, all the possession, which they do against most teams. And they were just, luckily that was our end. The ball was at our end all the time. We couldn't get out of it. So basically, the first real chance came. They had a good cross in the box, and Alvarez had a good header. And Henderson made a really good save, which was brilliant for his confidence because they said this is his first full match he's played since January. So to come in, make that save, it was rocking him. It was good, and we were looking solid. They had the ball, they were pressing, they were probing, but they weren't really making any chances at this point. And then they had Gay nearly scored an own goal. He deflected a shot. That was pressure there. Diaz had a shot from outside the box. So the pressure was building, and it was building. And every time we got out, Mateta couldn't hold it, or if he did hold it, he didn't have anyone to pass to because everyone was behind him. It was just the goal was coming. We knew it was coming, and sure enough, Jack Grealish scores a nice goal. I have to admit, and I'd like to see what you guys think about this. Having seen it back on the TV, it took about 4 minutes to give. So everyone's in the stadium as always. The Man City fans are chanting what they think of VAR and all this sorts of stuff. I'm of the belief. They put a very thick line in there. I think if that had been us who'd scored that, it would have been a lot thinner line and they'd have found an offside. But I still think his foot was slightly offside.
That term, a thick line, I don't know who that was. You were applying that to the Palace back five or what? But Greg, just picking up on what Paul's saying about the goal and the margins themselves. Where do you think VAR came to the right decision, and do you think that they got to that decision as quickly as they should have got to it?
So I think the view they showed on Match of the Day, I personally felt it was onside. However, I think I'd read somewhere earlier in the day that they had a different view, which it seemed to appear as if it was offside. So look, it's a difficult call, really. 4 minutes is far too long. I don't get that it takes 4 minutes for the assistant referee to make the decision in the box. I think really he's got a maximum of 30 seconds. I don't know why it doesn't take that. But if I was in the box and the view they gave me on Match of the Day, unfortunately I would have given a goal.
Okay. Oh, that's fair. That's fair assessment. Tim, what was your opinion on that?
Yeah, I think it was a goal. I'm kind of sick and tired of how long it's taking, and the cynical part of my brain kind of think it's nothing more than the powers that be deciding they want a certain decision to be made, so they will keep showing it until the ref agrees with that decision. Hence the Liverpool game, the 33 times was it they showed that foul from Hughes. If it takes you that many times to look at it, is it really a clear and obvious error? And is it nothing more than we want that decision to be made? So we're going to keep showing it until you, the ref, who is officially the one who makes a decision that we want you to make. So it was a goal. It took ridiculous amounts of time. End of story.
I think the three of you are spot on there. I would concur with that. You knew it was close, but as soon as they zoomed in, you just thought, just give it. And to be fair to City, it was a fantastic passing move. I'd wish our players could pass that well and accurately. for most of the time. But
you'd expect that though from £100 million player, wouldn't you?
Yeah, well, and a potential £100 million player has passed it to him. So there you go. You're right. So so we're 1-0 down after 20 odd minutes. Then Paul. So if you want to pick up from there, then.
Yeah, much more the same. They were pressuring. They had a few half chances and stuff. Nothing really too dramatic, but we finally got out of our half towards the end of the half, and we did the first time we'd actually turned the Man City defence around. We played a through ball, so they're actually having to run towards their own goal, which is half the battle of football. And if you don't do that, you're not going to do anything. But Mateta raced onto it, and basically, as we all know, he got taken out on the edge of the box. Ederson comes flying out like a madman, and we got the free kick, obviously. And I think all of us in the away end were in disbelief. We couldn't obviously see how close it was to the box, but it looked like if it's not a penalty, it's got to be a sending off, surely. And the ref got the yellow card out before Ederson had even got up. I don't think he even gave himself any time to think about it. But I can't see how that's not personally a red card. I mean, he's come flying out like that. The only reason he's come flying out like that is because he knows he's got to get the ball. Because if he doesn't get the ball, it's a goal scoring opportunity. So by definition,
I would agree with that. So, guys, I'll throw it over to you two as well. Your thoughts on that decision? For me, it was. I think it was right on the cusp of being a poor decision. We go back to VAR. Is it an obvious mistake? Greg, your thoughts on that? Should it have been a red?
I think it's a straight red card. I think if that's an outfield player making a challenge like that, it's a straight red card. Was it a goal scoring position? Borderline, but it is Mateta. You're not sure if it's somebody else. It might have been a goal scoring opportunity. No, I jest. I think it's a straight red card. I think that's clear and obvious error. I can't see how he stayed on the pitch. I mean, you only have to look at that still. He's nowhere near the ball. He's taken the bloke out. It's a cynical foul. It's a straight red.
Okay.
I can't. Again, I can't wrap my head around the logic of why these decisions are so vastly different, and I think that's why everyone is so miffed off with VAR.
Yeah.
For me, why is that not off? That would be off.
Well, no, I agree. Tim, do you not think that Ake was reasonably close enough to potentially be a covering defender in that regard, and that's potentially why it was a borderline yellow?
Yeah, we've all got to just accept the fact that there are certain clubs that get away with certain things that we don't. Let's go back a couple of years against City when Haaland almost takes Anderson's head off, standing fully upright, no red card. For me, that was a yellow card. I agree with you. He was far enough to the edge of the penalty area. There were other covering players. Yeah, it was cynical. The foot wasn't terribly high. So if it had been us, highly likely Henderson would have been sent off. And it's exactly the same. How many times do you see things happen in the penalty area that aren't given, and yet 2 inches outside the penalty area, 2 minutes later, the same thing, a free kick is given? It's just the nature of the beast, unfortunately. But for me, I think a yellow card in that instance was fair enough.
Greg?
So I just want to go off on a tangent a second here, because it's a contentious point. I've read somewhere, I don't know if this is actually happening, but they're discussing sin binning for cynical challenges, like 15-minute sin bins. In this example, right, the keeper's come out and they've given him a yellow card, they'd sin bin him. So how would that work if it's a goalkeeper? Are you putting an outfield player in goal for 15 minutes? It just seems that, it just made me think, would if that rule existed now, would the goalie have made that decision? What would happen?
I've no doubt if ever it does come in, they will find a way around it or something along those lines. Right, I don't want us to derail this too much because Paul's chomping at the bit. But Tim, very quickly, your thought on that, then go on then.
I think they do the same as they do in rugby. It would be a case if your prop goes off, injured, then you bring one back on for a short-term period, or a blood bin. You bring on, they'd have to take an outfield player off and bring another keeper on.
Okay, all right. Paul, just before I let you off the leash again, you said something just before we were talking about the Ederson thing, and that's something I was going to quickly throw out there anyway, and that success in hitting the channels. When you've got teams like Man City, and we were doing it very well against Liverpool because they had such a high press with their fullbacks, hitting it into the channel. I think is something that we can possibly exploit against the other team. Certainly against the shan't be named on Thursday night, because again they play in a very similar way, and I'd be interested to see if that's by design or whether or not it's something that there's like the Alamo and they just wanted to get rid of it and run on. What are your thoughts on that as a tactic against the high pressing teams? And then obviously just carry on to half time for us. Yeah,
it's a key thing. I've said on this before, and I'm a firm believer in the mindset of a football team and how the first thought should always be attacking and trying to progress the ball up the pitch. And it's probably why we do better against the better teams, because like Man City, Liverpool, and the lot on Thursday, their wing backs will come forward, which does leave space on the wings. And if you can then get the people to the forwards to make the curved run, and you play a good ball through over the top or sort of slide it through, as we showed in the second half, which we'll get to, yeah, you can get some space from that. My other issue then, going into the Palace tactical board here at this point, when we do that, our other next big problem is our midfielders are robots and they are told stay here. So we don't have people breaking into the box. I remember at Luton the other week, as soon as the winger got the ball and was head down the wing, 3 players were just as sprinting as fast as they can get in the box. We need to get more players into the box. And that's ultimately how we're going to progress with these things. So, yeah, I'm a firm believer in turning defences round. When you're playing it across the middle and all this, it's too easy for defences. You've got to get them facing their own goal. That way they've got more to think about, more chance of making a mistake, more chance of losing concentration. And we've got the players to do it, which we showed. And this is the frustration with Crystal Palace. I think if we take the handbrake off, there's a good team in there. There's some pacey attackers in there. There's some clever attackers in there who can make these runs. But under Roy, it's like playing. I always think what Roy's team is like a table football team. It's like there's a metal rod between the whole midfield, and they all move in unison, and they all go, and no one can break out of this system, which is the way he plays, and that's his prerogative. But we don't have the freedom in the team. That's why I think when Gallagher was here a few years ago, he ran past the forwards. He gave people someone to hit, someone to pass to, and he gave the forward, if Mateta or whoever controls the ball, chests it, holds it, he's got someone to lay it off to. And so, yeah, as we see, second half, it paid off. But, yeah, so
we'll come back to Riley's tactics later.
Yeah, so first half ended, and, yeah, to be honest, we're quite pleased to be 1-0. We're all feeling a bit aggrieved about the potential red card. But, yeah, actually, yeah, we're losing, but we're not being thrashed. It's at 1-0, you're always in a game. So, yeah, come out second half. Pretty quick. They get a free kick on the side of the box. They swing it in. It goes straight in the goal. Goal given, celebrate. The linesman puts his flag up. And again, we have another VAR wait. And it's a lot quicker this time. Having seen it back again, I think it's the correct decision. It didn't touch anyone. So that's the City argument. But keeper can't dive for where the ball's going because he thinks Rodri's in front of me and he's going to head it the other way. So he's interfering with the keeper's thinking. So I think that was a good decision to rule that out. I'm sure everyone else.
Yeah, I agree
Tim?
with that. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, there's no doubt about that.
I would concur. I was looking to see whether or not it was an indirect free kick at first, because I thought that might have been why he disallowed it. But yeah, it's clearly interfering with the goalkeeper's. Well, one, he was offside for a start, and secondly, so had he touched it, it wouldn't have counted. But secondly, he was clearly coming across the goalkeeper, and you saw Henderson go for it and then stop because he thought he might have been knocked in. So
yeah,
at that time, guys, at that time, Ozo had actually been on the pitch for quite a few minutes then. Greg, how did you think that Ozo started? Because must have been a really hard game for an 18-year-old to come on into. Certainly away at Man City as well.
To the champions of Europe, I mean, it just goes to show you how good these youth players are. The ones that do get on the bench, that and are called upon. Most of us would be quaking in our boots. So it's come onto the pitch, and I've read in reports, he's pretty much put in a man of the match shift. So I think it's brilliant. That's what everybody wants to see. Everybody wants to see, the management put a little bit of faith into these players, you know, and there's no better place really to make a start than away at Man City. You know, really, it doesn't get much harder than that, if at all. So, you know, fair play to the lad. He's come in place of Ward. He's put in a shift, you know, and you know that's what I think for the majority of the fan base are wanting that. You know, I know Roy has his ways and he's set in his ways, but you know, it was refreshing because it could have easily have been Tompkins. No disrespect
Tim?
to Tompkins.
And that's it. That's interesting, Greg. So, Tim, were you surprised that he put Ozo on in front of some of the others that were on the bench? And B, how did you feel Ozo did in his first 20 minutes?
I was delighted. It was like, finally, you know, what the hell? What have we got to lose? There's a lot to be said for these players have to be ready, but then how do you know if they're going to be ready unless you put them on in a place like that and actually see how they can do? For me, going forward now, he needs to play. He needs to start. I mean, especially if Ward is going to make, he needs to start Thursday. And I mentioned before we started the show, I mentioned I saw an interview with him on Palace TV, and you can see he's Palace through and through. And he said he's got to play Thursday. He said Thursday's the big one. I've got to play. And that's what you need to see. You know? I'm
going to stop you there because I actually took that quote, and he said, "I've been at Palace since I was 10." And then when he said about playing the guy said playing against on Thursday, he said he laughed and said, "Yeah, that's the game of playing, man. That's the game of playing." And that's what you want. He gets it. He's 18. He gets it.
I mean, you look at United, going back a few years, us old people. You look when Ferguson took over at Man United, almost got the sack. What did he do? Got rid of all the experience of players that are getting paid a fortune and went to their youth. You know, Giggs, Scholes, Beckham. Not saying that our players are of that quality, but that's where you get loyalty for a club. That's where you get players who play with passion and play because it means something, because they owe something to the club and they're in the club spirit. That's what you need, and that's what we've got no option but to do because of our paper-thin squad, owners who won't invest in the team, and injuries.
No, excellent point, guys. Right, Paul, sorry, I'm going to let you run through to the end now, mate. You just crack on. Go for it.
Yeah, that's cool. So, yeah, obviously they get the goal ruled out. We're all a bit relieved, but within a few minutes, that relief was gone because they scored another goal. Yet again, VAR on the scoreboard, VAR check, and everyone's getting just sick and tired of this every time the ball hits the net. They went through this. I saw it a few times, and I think I'm just about at the conclusion. It was this one was a good goal. I'll let them have this one, much as I try and rule these things out against us. But yeah, it did come off Schlupp. He did try and play the ball. So yeah, it was. And so 2-0. We were thinking, well, this is it. And again, City then they try and put us to the sword like teams should do. And Silva had a great curling shot, which Henderson, brilliant save, absolutely top draw save, which he injured himself doing, I think. And at that point, we're all like, yeah, what? Shouldn't have come back too early. He's pulled something again, but yeah, great save, and luckily he got up again. And yeah, the game to me felt like it was just coasting. We weren't making any tactical changes. We're still playing 5 at the back. We're still soaking up pressure. We're not getting anywhere out. And yeah, the game's really just going to drift. So it's finishing up. And then in the 75th minute, we do what we did for one time. We had some success in the first half. We turned the defence around. We played the ball over the top. We forced them to go towards our own goal. Schlupp made a great run, and Schlupp is a very frustrating player to me because that's what he can do. But again, I think he's been roided. He gets told to stay in a position. And when he's allowed to sprint, he's got the pace, he's got the power, and he's got the drive. And I remember his goal at Burnley this year was another example when Ayew got the ball on the right, and it's one of the few times you look at the back post, he's driving in as fast as he can and getting in the box. And so it was great. And he got forward, did well, crossed it, and Mateta done very well. He got in front of his man, put it in the goal, and yeah, the crowd was up in surprise and shock and think, well, this can't be happening. We can't do this surely. So yeah, it was a great atmosphere then. Everyone was up. And then Roy, he was just about to make a sub before the goal. And it was a bit disheartening because we scored and then they put their coach back on. And we're like, oh. he thinks he's cracked it and this is all too good. But he only waited a couple of minutes and he brought on França and he brought on Amada, and the change was instant. You could see you had players on the pitch who, as he said in his match of the day interview, as Greg said, he'd obviously told them, go for it, go and try and get me an attack. Don't just go there and mark space or mark. And you could see instantly. And as I say, the first few touches França had, he gave Kyle Walker a roasting, and I've not seen Kyle Walker given trouble like that for a long time. And it gets, and that's infectious to the team. It gets the rest of them all wanting to go forward. And we started to put pressure on, and you could tell the crowd was getting a bit sort of wary because they could see we're actually pushing forward now. And yeah, we just put the pressure on, and eventually, obviously, it paid off. We had a great little move down the right, great cross from França, and we all thought Mateta's about to do a Ronaldo Garnacho overhead kick of the season, and it was just cleared. But he didn't give up. He got up, he went and chased the ball down, won it back, got in the box, and then as Pep said, it was blatant penalty. I mean, he took him out, and then that's when all the stress started in the away end because everyone is just you're seconds away from this incredible turnaround and result, and your first fear is obviously, oh God, please don't miss this. And it was, and again, there's a VAR check, so it's even more time to wait. And then, of course, you're talking who's going to take it. I mean, Mateta took one last week. Obviously, Eze was on the pitch now at this point. He took one the other week. And Elise's standing there with the ball. Now, for me, I was quite pleased with that because Elise is our set-piece taker. I think he's, by definition, he's supposedly our best player with a dead ball. And he's a confident guy, let's be honest. So I probably wouldn't have wanted anyone else on the pitch to stand up and take it. And sure enough, cool as a cucumber, he rolls it in the corner, and well, the away end, as you can probably imagine, just went completely mad and absolute mayhem. So it was great. And then we're all just like, well, okay, ref, blow the whistle, that's surely it. But it was even time, and this was even more un-Palace and un-Roy-like, which was great. We got the ball, and our first ball wasn't time wasters or anything. We tried to go forward again, and this was great to see. And they had the confidence. They knew they can take on the champions of Europe. We've scored 2 against them, and their thought was, let's get another one. And it was great. And if we could get that mindset into this team from the off against anyone, I think we would see a wholly different team. But França got the ball across. It was just slightly behind, and eventually the ref blew the whistle, and we were all ecstatic, really.
All right. Firstly, Paul, that was absolutely superb. Well done. Much better than that Noble bloke for a start. Right. Well done. You crammed so much in there. That was fantastic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and unpick a few bits and throw it over to the other two. Right. Okay. Just look, the guy that's on the screen, Mateta. Tim, this is to you. How good was Mateta's performance away at the speech marks world champions, playing up front on his own? How good was his performance?
I've been very vocal of my not particularly being very happy with Mateta, but I will say that I think both his performance at United away and also City were probably his best 2 performances, as in overall game performance that he's put in for us. The effort he put in yesterday. Normally, for me, he kind of trots around. He doesn't seem to track back much, or he doesn't seem to put a lot of pressure on the keeper who's got the ball or defenders. But yesterday, I thought he was superb. I mean, again, for the move that led to the penalty, like Paul said, he didn't give up on it. He won the ball back. He made himself a nuisance. And big strikers, he should be doing that. He tried to hold the ball up. He tried to left it to lay it off when the few times we did break. But it was a difficult game yesterday. He was on a hiding to nothing, really. Do you know what I mean? We were never going to put an awful lot of chances his way. So it meant when he did get a chance, it's even more important. And what a great run and what a great finish. He's exactly what you want your striker to do, be in the box. And he went for it. It was a great goal, I thought, personally.
No, I agree. And so I've got to apologise to everyone. We've been seeing your comments come up, but obviously, as we've been discussing this, that you're doing us proud tonight, getting all these comments in. There's Rob Cranford. I've just seen that one. We were spoiled with that result. I wonder if Roy will come out with that at some point this week. That was genius. But everyone out there, if you put in your comments, put in the comments about how you think Mateta did, whilst I get Greg to let me know what he thought on Mateta's performance.
Yeah, do you know what? I find our current centre forwards in Mateta and Edouard really frustrating because they've both shown flashes of brilliance and they've both shown flashes of, you know, barn doorisms. I'm really happy with Mateta and the fact that he got a goal. I do think he can be really dangerous, and he has shown to score, or he has proved that he can score in those big games. You know, Leicester last season. You know, Brighton, he came off. I think he come off the bench and he got like the back heel goal at the Amex. You know, he has contributed. You know, I think I heard on Match of the Day, it was something like his second goal in 41 games or something, which I thought was a bit hard to believe. 3 goals in 41 games. So obviously the stats aren't kind, but you know, like I've just said, you know, that completely kind of contradicts how I feel about it. I feel like he's contributed at key moments, you know, as has Edouard. You know, and yesterday was a great example. And Tim's absolutely right. You're going to get slim pickings at the Etihad. There was a chance to go forward, and they took it. And that you can't ask more of a centre forward than when there's an opportunity, they take it. And he took it. So you can't criticise the guy. He's done his job. And, you know, for that alone, he could have played pony for the other 89 minutes, right? But for that alone, he got one chance. He scored. So that's it.
Let's encourage him to pay pony for many more 89 minutes, please. Because I'm inclined to agree. Look, listen, one of Jordan Ayew's biggest critics, along with Joel, for years and years and years, he's been superb. It's always important, as if you're going to dig people out, to give them credit when it's due. Now, John Cook, he's put in 2 games don't make a season. He's not good enough. I think I tend to agree with you, Jonathan. But full props to him yesterday. He ploughed that furrow. And yes, you know, he got the support from the likes of Schlupp, etc. yesterday, which helped. There's no point in trying to muscle the whole 3 people off if no one's going to come and be taking the ball off him. The Edouard thing, I think, is a little different. Edouard has to play him. He finds it a lot harder to play the lone striker, which is Roy's preferred role. He's far more clinical, so he then needs the service from the wings, which we don't give by and large. So there's a bit of a quandary there, and I think it's not necessarily the players themselves that are at fault. You know, I think by and large it's the system, and we don't necessarily have the players for the system that the manager longs to play. So thanks for everyone for putting in your thoughts on Mateta. What I want to then go on is to come back to is Elise's penalty. How cool was that penalty? You know, you go back to the Liverpool game with Mateta's penalty, which was awful, but he got away with it because Alisson dived the wrong way. Elise's penalty, you know, had even Ederson gone the right way, he weren't saving it. He just passed it into the corner. There must have been so much pressure on him. Paul, you know, your thoughts on that? Is it he's got to be our penalty taker from now on, surely?
Well, as I said, he's our set piece taker. He takes the corners, he takes the free kicks. He's obviously the most trusted man with a dead ball, and he's technically probably our best player. He's a fantastic footballer, and as you say, he postage stamped it. Most of these players, they wait for the goalie to move, and then they'll try and put it the other side. As you said, it didn't matter if he'd gone that way anyway. That was going in, and as you say, when you add on to that, it's the 94th minute. He knows what's at stake. He knows what's coming. The pressure, as you say, was immense, and say there were people in the crowd who couldn't even look, and so how he must have felt was amazing. But yeah, he took it great. He could, and if he's on the pitch, he'd always take my penalties, to be honest. And the sad reality is that's also a reflection on the other players, because when I looked around,
exactly. Our strikers,
exactly. There's not anyone else I would be very comfortable with taking a penalty, to be honest.
No, so that's fair. Tim, what would you think about Elise and penalty taking?
Yeah, he's definitely got the ice in the veins, isn't he? It's good to have that confidence. But what I also want to mention yesterday is just what a great performance players like Richards, Mitchell put in yesterday. I mean, you look at the team we were playing. I mean, for 80% of that game, backs to the wall. But the discipline, the intelligence and courage that the team showed for most of that game, to me, it looked like a team that felt they owed the fans something. All right, take the Liverpool game out of the equation. But the games before that, there'd been a lot of mistakes and a lot of poor play. But yesterday, yeah, I thought, poor old Tyrant Mitchell. I mean, what he was up against was just unreal. And to be fair, I can't think of many times where he was beaten or he let the side down. And again, Richards, in a role that he's not used to playing, look how well he's done there. So, yeah, yesterday, yeah, you could say we rode our luck sometimes, but that's 2 trips to Manchester and 4 points in one season. I don't think many of us would have taken that before the season started.
No, you're right. You're right. And I just before we go on to Mark Gurley, Giorgio Agwu brought up a very good point. Right. So I just want a show of hands for this. Who would have Eze taking the penalties over Elise? Wow. Minority of one. There you go. That never changes. It's like my life, really. Right. Okay. That's good. That's a great discussion. Thanks, guys.
I think just one
yeah.
thing, Ian. Sorry, I think one thing
Yeah.
that does need to be noted, something similar to what Tim said. I think what shone through yesterday was the spirit. Now I know we're quite high up on a lot of charts, getting points from losing positions and things like that. But even when they were 2 down, they were sticking to they were playing to the game plan, and there was a spirit. And when the final whistle went, it was really nice because the whole team, the whole bench, they all came over to the away fans and they were celebrating like they won. I'm not because it was a moral victory, let's be honest. And it was really great to see that sort of connection, especially after the Bournemouth game recently and things like that. And yeah, it's clear they're playing for the manager. I mean, I know all the fans have issues with the manager, certain whatever, but the players are obviously still on board, and results like that will only strengthen that, really.
I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. Greg, come to you first, then throw to Tim when you finish. Yeah, go.
Yeah. Just sort of continuing on for what Paul's saying there. Look, first teamers, they know who they are, and a lot of them are out injured. And I don't mean any disrespect to the first teamers, but when you're not a first teamer and you're going away to Man City, and it's like I said at the top of the program, they're playing for their careers in, their Palace careers. They get limited minutes. Richard just shown some great quality when he's played. I'm fearful that we would lose a player like that, or he would move on. Because when he's been called upon, he's really performed and really played well. And I think yesterday when I saw that lineup, and now we've seen the outcome, and obviously talking to Paul, who was obviously there, in the flesh, seeing it live. When you play in a side that is a patchwork team, they're pulling together as a team, and that doesn't always translate when you're a first teamer. And I'm not digging the first team out. It's just in those moments, it's the underdog spirit that can get you that 2-2 draw. You'll never know. Would the first team have got a better result? Would they have got a 2-2 draw? It's an impossible question to answer. But the reality is we took a squad of players to the Etihad and we've got a point, and you've got to celebrate that.
Yeah, look, and like Lee Lockwood makes a very good point. He said at the end of the day, we still only taken 4 points from the last 27, which is true. But football is 90% confidence. And I think the performance against Liverpool and the result yesterday puts an entirely different slant on the game Thursday. I think if we'd been trounced yesterday, if we'd lost 2-0 or been worse, Thursday, I think, could have been a train wreck. But I think now the confidence from the Liverpool game, the confidence from yesterday, completely different for Thursday, I think.
No, I listen. I agree with you all, and I think Dawn, you talk so much sense, so many times. You need to come on this show. Dawn has said that that's what Danny Murphy said, that everyone knows their jobs. So when they do come in, they know the role they have to play. Okay, and that is down to Roy. There is no, or, and Ray, but there is no getting away from that. It's just, for me, it is still a bit limiting. And as John said, a couple of others have said, let's not get too carried away with this and how people have said it. But it's going to take me on to my next point, and I'll kick this off with you, Paul. Having seen, Roy's been forced into playing players that he would ordinarily have overlooked because he has his favourites and tries the same thing over and again. Tim brought up a great point about Richards. Richards has been in for 3 games now, and he's been fantastic for pretty much the majority of it. And he's gaining in confidence. This is the player that we bought a while ago that we're now seeing flourishing. And because he was forced to use kids that on the show we've been crying out just for giving a chance, and you said it earlier, and when they've actually played, and it's not as if they've come in alongside a really strong 11 and just been, someone's been taken off just to blood them, which is what Ferguson used to do. They're having to stand up and fight in the trenches with everyone else because there is no one else. Where does Roy go with Ozo and França for the next game, Paul? In your eyes, what would you do as well? What do you think?
Roy, I am pretty sure I'd put a lot of money on they will be back on the bench. Now, we all know Roy. He's going to play his team, and okay, if they get results, you can't argue with that. The best part about yesterday in that respect is the 2 Franços, they came when they did well. So that gives him some trust in them, because Roy Hodgson's all about trust. If he doesn't trust a player, you've got no chance. So the fact they've come on and done the jobs is great, because it is more chance they'll be brought on in the next game. There's a lot of talk about him not using França because he wants to bring him on when we're winning. Now, I mean, that's a very fanciful way of looking. I'm only going to bring a player on when I'm winning, when I'm in a huge losing run, because he will never come on, and therefore you don't get him blooded, you don't get him experience. And the worst thing that happened was when he came on the other week, and he didn't have a great game, and the manager then dug the 2 youngsters out, so they didn't change the game, blah blah blah, because that gave Roy his excuse not to bring them on. He was forced to yesterday, and they repaid, which is great. Now, my hope there is, if it is a bit tricky on Thursday and we are having issues, or there's potential to do well, he will actually trust enough to bring them on this time. So that's the step forward we got here. I do fear we will be back to the normal team. We'll be back to a back 4, which okay, at home is fine. But yeah, it will still be the same methodical team, I imagine. But my only hope is he has a bit more trust in them now, and we'll bring them on. I would love to see. I get an organised defence, fine. Organised midfield, all this fine. Personally, as me, if I was picking the team, that I would have Elise, Eze, and França, and I'd have Ayew up top, because Ayew he's the best in the club at holding the ball up. He will hold it up, and then those 3 are mobile. They can run past him. He can lay it off to them. They can make runs. He can pass it around. I think that would be, and then say, just go and play. You lot are free, and then you can focus as dour and as static as you want your midfield and defence to be. But you've got that outlet, and that's what I would do. But then again, I don't suffer financially if we get relegated, so I can say all these things. But yeah, I think Roy Hodgson will play a safe system until he played an adventurous system at the end of last season, because really he had nothing to lose. And if you go back over the seasons with Roy, once we've got safe, we've started playing good football and we've got good results. And once he knows the pressure's off, he can take the shackles off. But until he's got that okay from the club, or whether he still thinks I need 40 points, it will always be the Roy Hodgson static way. And that's why we're stuck in this loop. But yeah, I would go for Brighton on Thursday. They've not kept a clean sheet in the league once this season, so every team is going at them. They've got injuries, and I believe I was told earlier they've got 2 suspensions today. So there's 2 players got 5th bookings, so they'll be missing. So it's not a bad time to play Brighton, but we've got to go for them. Go for the jugular. That's what I would do.
Okay, Greg. Nige, can you put Dawn's comment back up for me about França? If you can find it, it's about 4 or 5 up from Nick's. But Greg, what are your thoughts as to whether or not Francia, Ozo deserve at least part of the game against Brighton, and whether Roy will do it. And what do you think of Dawn's comments below as well?
Okay, so I feel slightly mixed about it. If it wasn't Brighton and it was anybody else, I'd have a different answer. I suppose I'm not trying to Teflon the answer here, but I'll throw it out to the audience. Do you want to roll the dice against your arch nemesis, or do you want to try and play safe? Do you want to go to their place and be potluck and go for it, or what is it you want to do? What do I think Roy will do versus what I'll do? To be honest, I think França will be on the bench, and I think Ozo will start. And the reason I think Ozo will start is because he wants to play. And I reckon the worst that will happen is he'll get subbed off for Tompkins. I just feel that the lad will start.
But what do you think, Tim?
I'd go the opposite to Greg, match of the day expert. For me, I'm tired of seeing us put poor performances against Brighton of all teams. I'm tired of sitting there and just watching them basically struggle to even get a draw against them. We've got some young, talented players. Let's go for it. I mean, at the end of the day, everyone keeps saying, "Oh, we're not going to go down." Well, let's go for it. We've got confidence. We've shown that we can play the ball. Brighton are struggling. I think Eze has to play. If he's fit enough on the bench, he's fit enough to play. I would start Ozo for the game, especially if Ward is going to be out injured. If it's a hamstring, I shouldn't think he'll be back. But go for it. I mean, at the end of the day, it's our biggest rivals. We're at home. It's before Christmas. We've got some confidence now. We've got a lot more games coming up. You win games through confidence, and you get confidence by winning games. So let's actually go for it and actually have a real good go at them.
Okay, yeah, no, I know. I think that they're all very fair points. I would tend to go with the fact that Roy will just revert to type. If the players are available, he will just bring them back in. I think Ayu's guaranteed to come back in anyway. But injuries aside, I'd agree with you, Paul. I think that because he's been forced to play them, and I think he was forced to play them, he was trying to protect players by bringing Francia on as well. And he's now seen that they have the ability. I think that he's always so sure that they can't handle it until he brings them on, and that's how the likes of Wan-Bissaka got his start. Moses, Tyrek, Klein, they all get their start because there was no one else. Yeah. But I'm pleased that it's happened now. Secondly, what I would say is that we've all said this, is that we've got the players to go for the throat on Thursday. When Roy first came in, that's what he did. He just went, "Go and play, my children. Go and play. Enjoy yourselves." These are pretty much the same side, other than Wilf, and there should be no difference. I think he should release one of the two defensive midfielders, and then I think you'll see it on the side. Right, I saw Greg and Paul have got their hands up. Greg, I'll come to you first, and then we'll go to Paul.
Yeah, it was just going back to Dawn's comment, which I think was they brought França on when we were losing 2-1 and got nothing to lose. I think it was something like that. I think that's why I said I think França will start on the bench. I do think Ozo will play because I think Roy. I think Roy will put the same formation out. I think it'll be different players. I think you're right. I think Ayew will start ahead of Mateta. And there might be some slight change in the middle, but I think he'll start exactly as he did against City, and I think it will be a fairly typical sort of performance from Roy. I'd like it to be different. I'd like to go for it, but I think he doesn't want to lose that game, and I think that's what will make him play the five at the back.
Okay, right. Paul, very quickly, then I've got one more question. Go
Yeah,
for it.
I don't think we'll be four at the back, I'm sure. With the fact that Ward's out injured, I think Ayew will come. It'll be a natural number, a swap for him. I think Eze will play as well. So I think as much as Ozo probably deserves to play again, I don't think he will because, as I say, Eze will come in. And Mateta, he scored 2 in 2. If he drops him, that's just going to, I think that'd just be unfortunate. You can't do that really. So, as I say, I think it'll be, and I think he's got to go for it. There's no way. We are the home team. And we are still on 1 point a game at the moment, average, which is not the best form in the world. We've only won one home game. We need to start making these games count. And I think he won't go gung ho, but I think he'll be the normal 4 at the back. And to be honest, that any team with Eze and Elise even in the Roy system has a chance. So it'll be pragmatic, but I don't think he'll be as defensive as the other day.
Okay, cool. Right, so I realise, guys, I'm really sorry for everyone. I think we've just done this to death, but it's been a really good chat. I hope you agree. Quickly, we're obviously in the middle of a really, really thick run, and it was statistically the hardest run of games over Christmas of anyone in the Premier League. And I looked at the next 9 games. We've got Brighton, Chelsea, and Everton twice in those 9 games, as well as Arsenal, Sheffield United, and Brentford. So we've still got a lot of tough games. I know one of the Everton games is the FA Cup, and Nigel, you're a legend, mate, because you're reading either I'm reading your mind or you're reading my mind. Yesterday's result, up until had we lost yesterday, I think that the pressure would have been building on Roy. And I know from hearing from someone within the club that he's already said if the club approach someone or get someone in, he will step aside. But do we think yesterday's result has bought him a bit more time? And if it hasn't, and they get someone like Lopetegui or whatever, would you be comfortable with that at this point in time? Tim, you kick this one off.
I can't see them getting rid of Roy, to be fair. This manager they're talking about, I don't know too much about him. Knows at Wolves. I don't know enough about him to be confident one way or the other. But if not him, who else? If they do get rid of Roy, who else?
What I would say, Tim, is he's managed Wolves, 10 wins out of 27. Sevilla, 90 wins out of 170. Real Madrid, 6 wins out of 14. Spain, 14 wins out of 20. And Porto, 53 wins out of 78. So he's managed some half decent clubs, to be fair. I know this is all conjecture, and I know, people say don't get rid of Roy, this, that, and the other. But for me, I think yesterday's result, I think you've got to roll with the momentum, and it is momentum because the team, as Greg perfectly pointed out, they've got something going there between them. They're all hands to the pump, and that's what Roy's excellent at doing, and Roy's getting. Greg, do you think that he'll see this? Even if we went to lose every other game now until February, do you think it'd still be there?
I can't see them. I can't see Roy leaving, but results dictate. So ultimately, as much as I say I can't see Roy leaving, if we do lose too many games, he will be relieved of his duties and will step aside. So I suppose my answer is more on the basis of we'll probably turn over. We'll get some surprising results. You might go and beat Chelsea. I think there'll be one of those wins in there somewhere. We'll beat someone we don't typically beat to alleviate the pressure on Roy. So having said that, if they're going to roll the dice for a new manager, now's probably the time to do it. With a January window looming. I know we don't normally do much business in January, or most clubs don't tend to. Lopetegui, I think, was vocal about not being really backed at Wolves for players. So, traditionally that, you're not going to get back to Palace either. So, yeah, he's managed some great clubs and potentially could be a really nice fit for a team like Palace. but I think it will be Roy. I think we'll be okay, and I think Roy will probably see the season out.
Greg, I think I'm inclined to agree. Right, Paul, you get the last say, and then I'll get my knuckles wrapped because we're going over the hour. So have a quick one, and then I'll finish up.
It's a strange thing to say, but I don't think Roy Hodgson's future is dependent on Roy Hodgson. I think the club is banking on 3 worst teams, and if the 3 teams at the bottom don't get close to us, then he will stay regardless of our results. Vieira got sacked when we were 3 points away from the relegation zone. I think if the bottom 3 stay 6-7 points away from us, he'll be fine. If they get close to us, that's when he'll be moved on. But then you have the problem, as we say, who do you bring in? If there's no one available, you bring in Paddy McCarthy. No, I'm not up for that. But yeah, so as long as he keeps the buffer between us and the bottom 3, he'll be there, regardless of whether that's because of our results or their results.
I think that's spot on. Listen, guys, everyone in the chat, let us know your predictions for, yes, I don't even want to mention their name. Let us know your predictions, and we'll then have a look. We'll ask the panel. Tim, I'm going to get you to kick this one off. What do you think Thursday's result's going to be?
It's Christmas. I've got a ticket. 3-1.
Oh, what to who?
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying the score.
Well, I'm putting you down to it because I know how slippery you are.
No, Palace. Palace 3-1.
All right. Okay, Paul.
I think we're gonna nick it 2-1.
Oh, and our very own. I really feel like, Greg, you should be turning around and then playing us some dramatic music at this very moment in time. Right. Okay, so Greg, what do you think Thursday's result's going to be?
0-0.
Oh, wow. Nigel, I hope you're writing all this down. In fact, Nigel, come on, give us your prediction, Nigel. Now, see, I've thrown him now.
2-1. 2-1 to Palace.
Right, okay. I am going to go 1-1. So we've got a lot of optimistic people there. This is what a point away does, doesn't it? That's amazing. 3-1, 2-1, 2-1, 1-1. Lee Clark, sensible. 3-1, 2-1. Well, okay. I think the eyes have it, don't they? I think the majority is going for a Palace win. Well, I hope you're all right, and I thank you all for joining us tonight. I apologise it wasn't Mr. Philpott, but nevertheless, I hope you've enjoyed tonight's show. My massive thanks go to Timothy, to Paul, to Greg, and obviously to the Ginger Wizard, Gandalf, in the top corner for producing the show. So until then, have fun, enjoy it. If you see myself or any of the Motley crew at the ground, come up and say hi. But if I don't see you all before, have a fabulous Christmas.
See you later, all. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Oh, I always miss that. Oh. Such an amateur.